Hello crafty friends! For today's card we are going to be making the Prized Peony grid card. So sit back and let me show you how I put this together. Let's get started on our card. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to cut the gray frame out of a quarter piece of gray granite paper, and it's going to be cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now when I take the paper, I want to make sure that I center it on the back side of the die so that it's nice and even when I stick it down onto the base. I don't want it off to one side or off to the other. This is exactly 4 1/4 wide, but it is a little bit longer than 4 1/4, so it might be, or 5 1/2. It might be like 5 3/4, or even a little bit more, almost 6. So I'm just going to take a little bit of tape, and I'm going to hold it down, and I'm going to tape in between the little strips. And on this one, that's okay because we're not going to use the stuff in between. On this piece of paper though, you don't want to be sticking it down onto the pieces that are going to go into the center of your mosaic. So I'm going to take this off to my die cut machine, and I will be right back with our cut piece. When it comes out of the die cutting machine, you're going to have a bunch of these little squares that you've cut out, and that's okay. For the gray piece, you don't need to worry about what cell that they came out of. However, for the designer series paper, we cut that in order to get it to fit back together into the puzzle. You are going to want to make sure that you keep track of which piece came out of which cell. And I will show you exactly how that is done as soon as we pop this out and get the other piece cut. There we go. Now our designer series paper is from the Prized Peony designer series paper set. And it is this gorgeous print. It has this beautiful gray print on the back and a very soft print in the petal pink on the front. Now, when I was sitting down to try this card out the first time, I tried it with the gray. And once I layered the gray upon the gray upon the gray and put the flower on top, which was also gray, it needed a little bit of extra life to it. So I thought that the petal pink paper would be pretty, and I'm going to keep the gray for the grid because I think that's going to set that off nicely. I didn't think that it would be contrasty enough with the petal pink. All right, just like I did with the grid, I'm also going to line the die up very carefully on this one. And the reason why is you don't want to have pieces that you cut out be bigger. Say you skewed a little bit this way. Now these are going to be really short, and then they're not going to fit into the full piece for the grid. So that's why you want to make sure that you have it centered in the middle so that when you do put the pieces all back together, they go back together and they fit all the same way. And I'm also going to make sure that when I turn this over, the petal pink is facing downwards. This piece also is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. On my prototype card, I actually tried to do it at 4 by 5 1/4 and found that when I went to go cut it down to take the 1/4 inch off of each side, it just didn't work very well that way. So I'm going to put as little tape as I can onto here, and I did this one second so that the tape is a little bit less sticky than it was for the other piece. So I'm going to run this through the die cut machine and I will be right back. Okay, so here's where the magic is. Before I run it through the machine, I'm going to use some of this Glad press and seal that I cut to a piece that's just large enough to cover over the back. Now, there's one side that's sticky and one side that's not very sticky, and I'm putting this on the back side of the die. That will hold on to all of the pieces so that they don't come out of the die as you take it off the plate. I'm also going to put this onto a plate and I'm going to run it through upside down, which I think is the way you're supposed to be doing it anyway. Often I've seen it say run the die face up with the cutting plate on top. It all depends. I've seen it mentioned both ways. Now you see, as the pieces come off, they are all still stuck into the grid here, and nothing has come apart. So now I'm going to take the second piece, and I'm going to put the second piece on the back so that we can take the die off the top. All right, now we can take this top piece off. And these are reusable. And then pull the die out. Okay, for the next step, I have a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white card, and on one side of it, I put some double-sided adhesive. There are new double-sided adhesive sheets in the new 2020 annual catalog, and this is a perfect use for them. I cut it to size and adhered it on, and now I got to pull the backing paper off. Now don't throw this away. You're actually going to use this as you put the pieces together. And use it as a place that I can rest my fingers without sticking to the tape, to the adhesive. So let's put our grid back on. And this is where this paper comes in handy, because now I can press it down and not be using the tacky stuff, getting tacky stuff all over my fingers. So this is where we just start putting the puzzle pieces back together. Okay, now that you got those adhered, take your plastic and just give it a good rub to make sure everything is sticking down and adhering really well, such as that was not. Now, you might wonder, where in the world did I get this die from? Good question. I got it out of the Best Year bundle, and this is the die set that makes plaid. It's the Plaid Builder die, and I was playing around with it with some Halloween colors and realized that as I was pulling all the pieces out, that it was actually kind of, it made a really nice grid for putting stuff in. In fact, as I was pulling the Cajun Craze pieces out when I was first playing with them, I'm like, gosh, what can I do with these? And that's when I kind of had the aha moment that you could actually use it to create a grid card. So that was out of the Best Year bundle. If you watched some of my videos, the last couple videos I've done, you know that I've actually used several stamps in this set, and it's a really versatile set, and I'll link to those up in the show notes at the end. So that's the Best Year bundle, and it's the Plaid Builder die, and that's the top grid part. I was picturing using this with some gold paper for Christmas cards, and I can't wait to see what that looks like. So set that aside. Now you can see here's the gray, and then here's the petal pink. And I think that that is just the right amount of contrast. I was going to use some of the basic gray, but that was just a little too dark, and I thought that that would steal away from the very pretty print on petal pink. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to take our half sheet of gray granite paper, and I'm going to score it at 4 1/4 so that I can make a side folding card with it. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened to my bone folder, but my very pretty nail file will do just fine. Isn't that gorgeous? What a spectacular nail file. I'm going to take this and I'm going to run it through my trimmer, and I'm going to trim this down, and I'm going to take a little bit off of each side so that it's, you don't want to take the 1/4 inch just off of one side because then your pattern would be lopsided. So you really have to take about 1/8 of an inch equally off of each side. So let me go do that. Now the next step is going to be stamping the peony flower, and you might have noticed at the beginning that I actually had 3 different stamp sets, and you're thinking, Deb, what are you doing with Sailing Home and Gorgeous Posies? Well, let me tell you, I'm going to use the largest flower from the Prized Peony, and I'm going to use the Get Well Soon sentiment from the Gorgeous Posies. I have a family member who is having surgery next week and thought that that would be a beautiful Get Well Soon card. Now, the Sailing Home might seem a little unusual, and you're going to think I've kind of lost it. However, let me show you why I chose this set and what I'm going to do with it. Okay, so this is the Sailing Home stamp set. There's a lot of masculine-looking stamps in here, very nautical. And when I was playing with it the other day, making cards with the Whale of a Time suite, I saw that it had this beautiful seaweed, and I also noticed that it had this really awesome label die. And I needed something that would be tall enough and wide enough for my get well soon sentiment. And I thought that that was just the perfect size and the perfect shape. So when I was originally making the prototype for this card, I stamped it out with gray granite and cut it out with the die, stamped the flower, and that's what we're going to use on the front. So the sentiment came from Gorgeous Posies. The die came from the Sailing Home suite. That was a bundle in last year's catalog. It is still available this year, just not as a bundle, but you can buy both pieces. Before we adhere the card down, I thought it would be pretty to maybe add some ribbon, see how that would look. And try to figure out where I'm going to put my flower versus my sentiment. Now let's see how this works. I can never tie bows very well, but I am going to put some adhesive on the back to at least hold the ribbon in place. Since I'm happy with the bow, not real happy with the ribbon, I'm actually going to cut it in the back and make it tighter. So there are always two ways to solve a problem. There we go. That's nice and tight. I am going to raise the flower up on some dimensionals. And I had originally played around to see if it made sense to put this doily behind it. That was part of the suite. And it just didn't really add very much to it. There's so much going on in the background. I didn't want to take away from the really pretty grid. So we're just going to raise this up on some dimensionals. And to finish the card off, I am going to add a little bit of bling. And we're going to mount that onto our card base. because this card is going through the mail, I would normally have mounted this also on some foam tape or dimensionals. However, I don't want to have to worry about, I want to make sure it gets to its recipient, and I don't want to have to worry about incurring extra postage. So there's the outside of our card. Now let's do a little bit of stamping on the inside to make the inside of the card look special as well. And to do that, I am going to take the Prized Peony stamp set and stamp. Oh, let's do the small flower on the inside. Okay, now we can mount this to the inside, and that just finishes that off. A little extra finishing touch, leaving lots of room to write your sentiment and let your recipient know how much you hope that they get well soon. Now this white card is also cut to 4 by 5 1/4 to leave a little 1/8 of an inch border all around. And there you have our Prized Peony grid card. I sure hope that you enjoyed our video today. If you did, and give it a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. I would also really appreciate it if you are interested in making a card like this for yourself. If you would, use one of the links below and in the show notes and on our website to purchase your products through me. I sure would appreciate it. It helps to defray the costs of making these videos. There are going to be more Prized Peony cards that I'll be making, and there'll be a playlist down here in the corner, as well as a link to a related card up here. And if you want to see more videos, please click the subscribe button and you'll be notified of upcoming videos. I also have all of the materials and a cut list and instructions over on my website, and that link will be down in the show notes below. Thank you so much and have a fantastic day. Happy crafting!